Hey, I'm Maya. I work in this huge trading company downtown, good money, cool office, you know the drill. But let me take you back to where the real story starts. It was just another manic Monday, and I was dashing through my lunch break at Joe's Cafe, the one right near my office that always smells like heaven thanks to a constant batch of fresh buns. I was in line, eyes on my phone, barely noticing the queue moving forward, when bam! My stomach reminded me it needed more than corporate emails to keep going. I glanced up and saw just one cinnamon bun left on the tray. I reached out, practically drooling, but so did another hand, bigger, kinda rough, with a fancy watch. Sorry, seems we've got a showdown here, chuckled the guy attached to the hand. He was tall, dark-haired, and had this easy smile that made you want to talk to him instead of punch him for the last bun. Looks like it. I mean, it's clearly calling my name, though. I shot back, nodding at the bun. He raised an eyebrow, still smiling. Oh, is that so? 'Cause my stomach begs to differ. Tell you what, he continued, his voice lowering as if he was about to propose a shady deal. We split it. 50-50, no crumbs left behind. I laughed. It was kind of ridiculous, but also pretty sweet. Not your usual bun battle strategy. Deal, but I'm watching you. Any sneaky extra bites, and we'll have a problem. Scout's honor, he promised, his eyes twinkling a bit as he tore the bun right down the middle, giving me the slightly bigger half. What a gentleman, huh? We grabbed our coffee cups, balancing the plate between us, and found a spot at the corner table. That's when the chit-chat kicked off. His name was Tom, worked in tech, a lot of mumbo-jumbo about apps and loads of traveling for work. He had this laid-back vibe, easy to talk to, didn't make my brain scream run, so we just kept talking. As we talked, I found out he was divorced, something about his ex being a nightmare and him being too trusting. He didn't dive deep, and I didn't push. My rule is simple, past is past, as long as it doesn't mess with my present. But just as I was about to ask more about his tech wizardry, my phone buzzed, a reminder of the meeting I had completely spaced about. Shoot, I gotta run, I said, standing up so fast I almost knocked the chair over. Rain check on our bakery battles? Tom asked, his tone hopeful, a slight frown as if he hated the interruption as much as I did. Definitely. It's a date. I mean, not a date, unless you, never mind. I stumbled over my words, face probably red enough to stop traffic. Got it. I'll bring the pastries next time, he said with a wink, and just like that, I was out, running back to the office with a goofy smile and a slightly lighter heart. After a couple of months of smooth sailing with Tom, the real test came knocking, meeting his mom, Mrs. Hargrave. Now, I knew this lady had a rep for being tough as nails, but nothing could have prepared me for the actual encounter. We were invited over for dinner at her place, a cozy house cluttered with family photos and knickknacks. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt her eyes drilling into me like I was some specimen pinned under a microscope. Thomas, who's this then? She barked the moment we entered, even though Tom had obviously told her we were coming. This is Maya, Tom introduced, his voice carrying that please be nice tone. Mrs. Hargrave stood there in her floral dress, squinting at me as she approached. It was like watching one of those nature documentaries where the lioness sizes up a wayward gazelle. Maya, huh? She grunted, finally close enough to apparently see me without her glasses, which were, by the way, hanging uselessly around her neck. Heard that name before. Didn't stick the last time. I tried to keep it cool, flashing my best diplomatic smile. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Hargrave. She snorted, waving a dismissive hand at me as if swatting away a fly. Let's hope you last longer than the last one. Come on then, dinner's ready. Don't dawdle. Dinner was like sitting through a bizarre quiz show where all the questions were about me, my job, my family, anything Mrs. Hargrave could use to catch me off guard. So, Maya, you work in trading, right? Big fancy job, lots of men around all day, I bet, she said, dishing out some kind of casserole that looked like it had seen better days. I nodded, keeping my tone light. Yeah, it's a busy place. Keeps me on my toes. And your family? They let you just run off with my son without a proper grilling? She was relentless, her voice sharp like she was trying to slice me open and peek inside. My parents trust my judgment, I replied, hoping my calm would annoy her or something. Mrs. Hargrave let out a long, dramatic sigh, plopping down in her chair like it was a throne. All women are the same. Quick to jump ship the moment a better offer comes along. Seen it before. Tom cleared his throat, a clear signal he was uncomfortable, but she plowed ahead. Don't think I won't be keeping an eye on you. I'll prove you're just like the rest if it's the last thing I do. The room felt colder suddenly, and I could see Tom's jaw clench. I decided to throw a little sass her way. Sometimes, you gotta stand your ground. Mrs. Hargrave, with all due respect, I'm not here to play games. I'm serious about your son, and frankly, I don't have time for much else. Her eyes narrowed, assessing my response. For a moment, I thought she might toss the casserole at me. But instead, she just huffed and focused on her food. The rest of the meal passed in a sort of tense silence, with Tom trying to smooth things over with small talk that stumbled and faltered under the weight of his mother's glares. When we finally left, it felt like escaping a witch's den. Ever since that dinner, it was like I had a target on my back, with Mrs. Hargrave as the sniper. Every time Tom went on a business trip, his mom somehow found more ways to wedge herself into my life. It was like living under a microscope, or better yet, a high-powered scope on a hunting rifle, and Mrs. Hargrave was all too ready to pull the trigger. One Tuesday, just after Tom had left for another one of his week-long trips, I decided to hit the mall to unwind a bit. But just as I was feeling a bit of peace, there she was, Mrs. Hargrave, lurking by the shop windows, squinting so hard I thought her eyes might pop out. "Keeping tabs on me, Mrs. H?" I asked, half joking, but really, I was ticked off. She nearly jumped out of her skin, then adjusted her glasses like they'd suddenly give her superhero vision. "Just shopping, Maya. But since we're here, who are you buying that shirt for? Someone special, maybe?" It was just a regular old shirt, nothing fancy. "It's for me. Believe it or not, I do wear clothes," I shot back, holding up the shirt. She sniffed, straightening up and peering around as if expecting to catch me in a lie on the spot. "I know your type. Always up to something." "Right. Well, have fun with that," I said, turning on my heel. But as I walked away, I could feel her eyes boring into my back. It was going to be a long week. A few days later, I was at the grocery store, minding my own business, when I heard the clatter of a shopping cart right behind me. Surprise, surprise, it was Mrs. Hargrave again, this time examining my choice of vegetables like they were evidence. "Planning a dinner for two, Maya?" she asked, eyeing the 2 steaks I'd placed in my cart. "Just balancing my diet, Mrs. Hargrave. Ever heard of protein?" I retorted, frustration bubbling up. She just clucked her tongue and scribbled something in a little notebook she pulled from her purse. "Just keeping notes, dear. A mother worries." "About what? Broccoli?" I was sarcastic now, couldn't help it. Mrs. Hargrave just glared at me, then turned her cart around dramatically and headed for the checkout. Watching her go, I shook my head. This was getting ridiculous. That night, I caught her again, this time outside my house. I'd gone out to throw the trash and there she was, near the bushes, like she was on some covert operation. "Mrs. Hargrave, seriously? It's 9 p.m. What are you doing in my bushes?" I asked, more amused now than angry. She stumbled out, brushing dirt off her hands. "I thought I saw a cat," she muttered. "A cat? Really? Because it looked like you were spying on me through my window." She huffed. "Don't flatter yourself, Maya. I have better things to do." "Then do them," I said flatly, throwing the trash in the bin with more force than necessary. Every encounter left me more baffled. What was she trying to prove? That I was some sort of secret agent living a double life? The whole thing would have been hilarious if it wasn't so darn frustrating. So there I was, just wrapping up a long day at the office, when my phone buzzed. It was my brother, Jack, asking if I wanted to grab some dinner. We decided to meet at this little open-air restaurant downtown. It's casual, the kind of place where they don't mind if you laugh too loud or stay too long. Jack was already there when I arrived, waving at me from a table in the corner. "Hey, sis. Over here. Starving or what?" he called out as I walked up. "I'm famished, you know the drill. Work's been nuts," I replied, dropping into the chair opposite him. We ordered the usual, burgers and fries, nothing fancy. As we ate, we talked about everything, his new job, my crazy days at the office, and plans for the weekend. It was good, real good, just to have some normalcy for a change. After we finished eating, Jack and I stood up to leave, and that's when he gave me a big brotherly hug. We said our goodbyes, and I didn't think twice about it. Just a regular night out. But the plot, as they say, was thickening right behind my back. The next thing I know, I'm walking into my living room to find Mrs. Hargrave sitting on my sofa like she owned the place, a smug look plastered across her face. "There you are, Maya. Out late tonight, weren't we?" she said, her voice oozing with accusation. "Just dinner with my brother, Mrs. Hargrave. What's it to you?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. "Your brother, you say?" She scoffed, pulling out a small camera from her purse and flipping it open to show a photo. "Looks more like a lover's tryst to me." I walked over and took the camera from her, expecting to see something incriminating. But it was just me and Jack, mid-hug. I couldn't help but laugh. "Mrs. Hargrave, that's my brother Jack. You know, the one you met at the wedding?" I said, handing the camera back to her. "By putting on your glasses maybe?" She reluctantly pulled her glasses from around her neck and put them on, looking at the photo again. Her pride obviously wounded, but her resolve still fiery. "This isn't over, Maya. I've got my eyes on you. And I've got my eyes on reality, which you seem to be losing touch with," I shot back as she stormed out of the house. After she left, I flopped down on the sofa, a mix of anger and relief washing over me. It was clear Mrs. Hargrave wouldn't give up her little game anytime soon. But the things that happened a couple of months later surpassed all my worst nightmare. As soon as Tom left for a month-long business trip to Europe, Mrs. Hargrave showed up at my door with her suitcases like it was the most normal thing in the world. "So, where do I put my things?" Mrs. Hargrave brushed past me, her suitcase thudding heavily on the floor. "I'm staying here while he's away. Need to make sure you're not turning the place into a circus." I followed her into the living room, my mind racing. Tom never mentioned this. And for the record, I don't run circuses. She plopped her bag on the sofa and started unpacking some of her stuff like she owned the place. "Well, I'm here now. Let's make the best of it, shall we?" The first few days were a nightmare. She had comments on everything, from how I arranged the dishes to the brand of coffee I bought. "You're buying this trash? At my son's house?" She'd scoff. "It's just coffee, Mrs. Hargrave. If you don't like it, feel free to buy your own," I snapped back one morning, tired of the constant nitpicking. One evening, things really came to a head. I came home late from work, tired and not in the mood for any more critiques. Mrs. Hargrave was in the kitchen, and the moment I stepped in, she started. "Where have you been? It's late." I hung up my coat with a little more force than necessary. "Working, Mrs. Hargrave. That thing people do." She tooted, shaking her head. No need for sarcasm. I made dinner. It's cold now, of course. I peered into the kitchen. There was a pot on the stove, and honestly, the smell wasn't inviting. "Thanks, but I ate." Eating out, again? What would Tom think? She had this way of saying Tom's name like he'd side with her on everything. "What Tom thinks is my business, not yours," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I was at my wit's end. Mrs. Hargrave clucked her tongue. "I'm just looking out for my son's best interests. No need to get uppity." That night, I called Tom, hoping he could talk some sense into her. "She's driving me insane. You need to talk to her." Tom sighed on the other end. I know, Maya, but please, just hang in there. She means well, she's just protective. Protective feels a lot like invasive right now, I muttered, rubbing my temples. The days turned into weeks, and Mrs. Hargrave didn't let up. She'd make snide remarks about how I was probably happy to have the house to myself when Tom was away. She'd inspect the laundry, criticize how I folded Tom's shirts, and had a running commentary on my cooking. Finally, I had enough. Mrs. Hargrave, I appreciate you care about Tom, but this is my home too. I can't have you commenting on every little thing I do. She looked taken aback, maybe because I hadn't confronted her this directly before. I'm just trying to help, she said. Help doesn't feel like this. It feels like you're trying to catch me out, and I don't appreciate it. The air was tense between us after that. She didn't leave, no such luck, but she was a bit quieter, stewing in her own frustrations. Life has its way of throwing you a bone right when you're about to break. That's exactly what happened when I got the news at work. I was promoted. Finally, all those late nights and endless projects paid off. The catch? I had to head to the main branch in another city for some intensive training. When I told Tom over the phone, I could almost see his grin through the receiver. Babe, that's fantastic. I knew you could do it, he said, his voice bubbling with pride. It's only a few weeks, right? Time will fly, and I'll be back before you know it. Yeah, it's just a month. But honestly, a break from your mom will feel like a vacation, I admitted, half joking. The training was intense, but invigorating. I was learning a lot, meeting new people, and for once, not having to watch my back every minute for Mrs. Hargrave. It felt like a breath of fresh air, freedom in its purest form. One lazy Sunday morning, as I was enjoying a rare moment of peace with a cup of coffee and the city view from my temporary apartment, my phone buzzed. Expecting it to be Tom, I smiled and picked it up. But it wasn't Tom. The voicemail left me frozen. Maya, I hope you're enjoying your time, because you won't have a home to come back to. I've sold the house. It's time you learn your place and stop fooling around. Maybe you can stay with one of your lovers since you seem to prefer that. My heart sank. Sold the house? What was she on about? Panicked, I dialed Tom's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Damn time zones. I paced around the room, thoughts racing. She couldn't have sold the house. Could she? Tom owned it, and he was miles away. No, this had to be another one of her games. Still, I couldn't shake the anxiety, so I called the only person who could give me some answers, Tom's sister, Sarah. Sarah, please tell me she's joking. Mrs. Hargrave left a message saying she sold the house, I said as soon as she picked up. Sarah's laugh was a mix of disbelief and irritation. What? No way, Maya. Mom can't sell that house. It's in Tom's name, and legally, she'd need his signature. But she sounded so serious, and you know how she is with her threats. I insisted, my voice shaky. Maya, listen to me. Mom's all talk. She's trying to scare you. Just ignore her. I'll talk to her. Sarah reassured me, but my nerves were shot. The call did little to calm my nerves completely, but it helped steer my thoughts away from worst-case scenarios. The rest of the training passed in a blur, and before I knew it, the month was up. I was ready to head home, well, to whatever awaited me. When my plane touched down, I braced myself. The drive home was nerve-wracking, each mile adding to my anxiety. What if she really did it? What if I now have to deal with being homeless on top of everything else? Walking into my house felt like stepping into a minefield, especially with Mrs. Hargrave waiting for me in the living room. She stood there, a stack of papers in hand, wearing a grin that could only spell trouble. Well, look who's back, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I hope you had a nice trip, Maya, because it's the last good thing you'll remember about this place. I dropped my bags, my heart pounding. What are you talking about? She thrust the papers at me. I sold the house. It's no longer yours or Tom's to worry about. You can go stay with your lovers, or whatever you do when you're not around. The papers looked official enough, and for a second, my vision blurred with panic. But I took a deep breath and grabbed the documents, flipping through them to see what mess she'd concocted now. "What's so funny?" she snapped as I started to laugh, not believing what I was actually reading. "These aren't sale documents, Mrs. Hargrave," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the mix of relief and anger boiling inside me. I pointed to her glasses, which were once again hanging uselessly around her neck. "Maybe try reading them with these on." She huffed but put on her glasses and started reading aloud. Her confidence faltered with each word, her triumphant tone turning to confusion, then horror. This is a contract for consulting services?" "Yeah, and from the looks of it, you've signed up for a whole lot of nothing at a very high price," I pointed out, unable to hide my smirk now. She slumped into a chair, the papers falling from her hand. "I don't understand. There was a man, he said he could facilitate the sale quickly, without needing Tom. He was so convincing. And you didn't think to check with your son before trying to sell his house?" My voice was cold, harsher than I intended, but the nerve of this woman. I thought I was helping," she muttered, her eyes filling with tears. "I wanted to prove a point. That I was cheating? That I couldn't be trusted?" I was boiling over now, all the pent-up frustration pouring out. "You've done nothing but make everyone's life miserable since I met you." She was crying now, really crying. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I looked at her, this small, sobbing woman who'd caused so much chaos, and I didn't feel a shred of pity. "You need to leave, Mrs. Hargrave. You can't stay here. Not after this." "But where will I go?" Her voice was small, pitiful. "That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you decided to play real estate agent with our lives," I snapped. "Pack your things. I'll call a cab to take you wherever you want to go, but you can't stay here." She nodded, wiping her tears, and slowly stood up to pack her bags. When the cab pulled up, she was quiet, her usual fiery spirit doused by the reality of her actions. She looked at me, perhaps expecting some words of comfort or a last-minute reprieve. "Goodbye, Mrs. Hargrave," was all I said, holding the door open for her. As the cab drove away, I felt the weight of the past months lift slightly. The house was still ours, the documents were just another one of her tricks gone wrong. When Tom finally came back from his business trip, the house felt different, calmer, somehow, but charged with the anticipation of the stories I had to share. He barely had time to drop his suitcase before I started telling him everything, from the made-up house sale to his mother's antics and her ultimate downfall. I watched his expression shift from disbelief to frustration, and then to a hardened resolve. "She went too far, Maya. I can't believe she tried to sell our house. It's time to set some boundaries. This has to stop." "Yeah, I agree. But what are we going to do?" I asked, uncertain about his take on the whole situation. "We?" He shook his head, his mouth set in a thin line. "No, I'm going to handle this. She's my mother, and I should have taken care of this a long time ago." A couple of days later, Tom met with his mother. I wasn't there, but he told me about it afterward. "It was a tough conversation," he said. "She tried to play the pity card, crying, saying it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just trying to protect him. But Tom stood firm. 'Mom, what you did was unacceptable. You can't stay in our house anymore, and you'll have to figure out your next steps on your own. Maya and I need our space, and you need to respect that.' But Tom, I have nowhere to go, and that consulting firm is demanding their money," she had wailed. "You made that decision on your own, Mom. You signed that contract without reading it, without even telling me. It's time you started taking responsibility for your actions." So, Mrs. Hargrave took out a loan to cover the costs she'd incurred with the shady consulting firm. And because her retirement savings were not enough to cover the payments, she had no choice but to find a job. Last I heard, she was working the night shift at a call center, and then doing shifts at a grocery store during the day. Tom and I rarely hear from her now, only brief calls to check in, which Tom handles. She's too tired for her old tricks, too busy trying to keep her head above water. Tom and I spend our evenings talking about the future, planning for a family we're both eager to start. We're thinking maybe in a couple of years, it'll give us time to ensure everything is stable, and that the shadows of the past don't loom over our new beginnings.